Good morning, everyone. Pastor Shane here with our semi-daily devotional. Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different with it, just because we had some technical difficulties on Sunday, and I could not give the message, or I could not get the live stream to work. So I said I would re-record the message and post it, but honestly, what happened on Sunday can't be recreated in a good enough fashion because it was lightning in a bottle on Sunday. It was really a perfect storm of like emotion and storytelling and everything like that. And everybody that I've heard from said that it was just a really good message, and I can't recreate that. So what I will do, though, for our semi-daily devotional today, what I will do is I will give you the basic points of the message, and a little bit of the story. So it's going to be a much shorter version of what wasn't a very long sermon in the first place. I wish I could recreate for you what happened on Sunday, but I just can't. It was in if nothing else, it was such an emotional sermon for me to give that I don't know that I would want to do that again. I really don't feel like going through all of those emotions again. It's really difficult sometimes as a pastor to share those things, just because you know we are paid in some ways to be very vulnerable. So the message was called Joseph and Messed Up Family Dynamics, and it is based off of the story of Joseph in Genesis. And that story actually spans a whole bunch of chapters, from the beginning to the end, from Genesis 37 through 50, through the end, really. And so I read a lot of verses for Sunday. I'm not going to read them all, but what you need to know is the basics of Joseph's story is that Joseph was kind of a snot-nosed brother. His other brothers didn't like him. He was the favored child, and he acted as many favored children do, and sort of fed on that with his father and used that against his brothers. And his brothers eventually then were thinking of killing him. They eventually sold him into slavery, which gets Joseph into Egypt. And then Joseph takes and he uses that situation as best he can, and he moves up the ranks and eventually becomes one of the highest political officials in Egypt of the time. So that's the story, right? But ultimately, the crux of it that you needed to know for the message was that Joseph and his brothers had messed up family dynamics, and that's what we focused on. And so I really started off by just saying that family relationships can be difficult. And this is actually true of all relationships, but family relationships specifically can be very, very difficult. They can be complicated. I shared the story of my mother and I not having a very good relationship for a long, long time. My dad died when I was 10. She remarried when I was 12, and she began her descent into alcoholism shortly after that. That was a descent that she never got out of, and it colored on her end. It colored our relationship and her ability to have relationships with everybody forever. And on my side of it, it was hard growing up in that, and so we just never had a very good relationship. It was always pretty bad, and I had just as much fault in how we dealt with that going through for many, many, many years. But that is a broken relationship that actually never fully healed, right? So the quick and dirty version of that was that it just descended when I was young, when I was a preteen, and it lasted a lifetime. It lasted the rest of our lives, and mostly. We'll get to that, though. But from the scriptures, from the story of Joseph, the one truth that you can really take out of it in terms of family dynamics and stuff like that is that God can work out even the most hostile family dynamics. And I said, Joseph's brothers wanted to kill him. They have ended up selling him to slavery. I can't imagine it getting quite worse than that in terms of family dealing with each other. But in the end, that family relationship is healed. At least it is reconciled in a way. So God can work out the most hostile family relationships. What we need to do on our end of it, especially if we're the damaged party, is we need to open ourselves up to the possibility of reconciliation. And that actually happens. If Joseph hadn't been ready to reconcile with his brothers, then it wouldn't have happened. If his brothers hadn't been ready to reconcile with him, it wouldn't have happened. So regardless of what side of the equation you're on, if you're not open to it, it won't happen. So if we believe that God can reconcile relationships, can help fix broken relationships, heal the damage that's there, then we need to open ourselves up to that. Whether we're the damaged party, especially if we're the damaged party, but even if we're the perpetrating party, we need to recognize this. The problem, as I saw it, and I still see it, is that we can't control other people. We can't control them in their relationships. We can't make them want to reconcile. We can't make them be sorry for what they've done. We can't make them see our side of things. They'll never know what it's like to be on our side of things because they're not us. They can't know that. No matter how we try to explain it to them or express it to them, even the most empathetic person will never fully know what it's like to be in our shoes, right? And most importantly in this whole thing is that we can't be sure that things will ever be good between us and the other person. So even if we open ourselves up to the possibility of reconciliation, we have to come to grips with right out front that no matter what we do, no matter how hard we work, no matter how hard we try, it may not happen. It may not happen. It may not ever be good between us. But here's the promise, and I know this to be true because I experienced this very thing in the relationship arc with my mother, and that is this: that God honors the work that we put into repairing brokenness, even if that brokenness is never fully repaired. This side, the hereafter, I put that in there. So God honors the work that we put in, that people put in, that you put in, that I put in to repairing brokenness, even if that brokenness is never fully repaired here and now. That work is honored in this way. So the question is, well, how do you know that? How do you know that? Well, here's how I know. Because God honors the work through the obliteration of regret. Okay? You will not regret putting every effort, giving every ounce of your heart, mind, and soul to repairing a broken relationship. You won't regret that work, right? Now, you may you may lament, feel sad, miss things that never were or things that could have been, right? But you're not going to lament things staying broken because of your unwillingness to reconcile, right? So, my last experience with my mom, my last interaction with her was in one of the times she was in the ICU, and she was very anti-religious. She was very angry at God, and she lived a life that showed it, and she had every reason to be, right? She had every reason to be, but her theology, her understanding of God and love and all of that never got around to a place where she could realize that God doesn't cause the bad things and that God's actually there through the bad things, right? So she was very she did not like the fact that I was in seminary. She did not like the fact that I was a pastor. My mom just didn't like that stuff. She was actually very, very angry about it. And so when she was in the ICU, every time, the chaplain will come in and pray for you or talk to you or whatever. Now, I always told the chaplain that they didn't need to go in. They did not need to interact with her because it wasn't going to go well for her or them, and that it was just not necessary. It wasn't going to have the intended effect, right? But my sisters, on the other hand, insisted that the chaplains go in. So the one time, the last time I was there with her, I asked her, I was curious. I said, how are your interactions with the chaplain going? And her response was, oh, so you're the one who sent them in there. And I was like, well, no, it's not me. It was my sisters, your daughters. I believe they think you need to cram for the exam. So, here it is. But she wouldn't hear it. And I said, why does it make you so mad that they come in here and they want to help you out? And she said, because they're snake oil salesmen. And I said, you think they're selling you something that doesn't exist? And she said, absolutely. I said, you think hope doesn't exist? And in that moment, I just knew that so many of the relational problems that I had with my mom and she had with me and that she had with other people were because she had lost hope a long, long time ago. And yeah, Chaplin's whole goal is to sell hope, is to give you comfort and hope, right? Even in the middle of it all. And so she was very angry that they would come in there and try to sell her something she didn't believe existed anymore. Then, so I asked her, well, since we're on this topic, I know you're not happy that I'm a pastor, I'm in seminary. Why is that? And her answer was, because you look just like them. Because you look just like them. That was literally the last interaction I had with my mom, because I said, okay, well, I guess we're done here then. And I left. And then she died about a month later than that. Now, I regret that, or I'm so sad when I think of it. I'm so sad that our relationship never healed. I'm sad that I remember more than my sisters even what my mom was like before she became an alcoholic, right? I miss that. So when I think about the relationship that could have been, I really oftentimes think about the mom that was there when I was 10 and 8, 9 and 10, that mom, and that we didn't have that. So I regret a thing that never was, right? I lament the fact that we could not eventually fully heal the relationship, right? But I don't regret trying for the last few years of her life. I don't regret trying to heal it, right? She did not die with me with that on my heart, right? I'm not sitting here today going, oh, I wish I had done more. No, I don't feel that at all. I did what I could. And I know. So that's how I know that God honors that work. That's how I know it. God honors that work because God honored that work in me. I do not regret it. Yes, do I miss my mom? Sure, I do. Do I miss the mom I could have had? Absolutely. Do I miss the relationship that we could have had things been fixed? Absolutely, I do. But I don't regret trying. I would have regretted big time not trying, because then I would have thought it was all on me and there was what could I have done? I don't feel that way because I know I did what I could. And so that's how I know that God honors the work that we put in. So the question then you come away with was, well, are we supposed to just let people get away with their stuff? Are we supposed to just let people get away with their stuff? And I think we're asking the wrong question about people getting away with stuff. Now, obviously, if oh, hold on one second. Where's my phone? Oh no. I could not have that alarm going off the entire time. I think we're asking the wrong question when it's about, do we let them get away with their stuff? Obviously, if you're in like sexual abuse or physical abuse or real verbal emotional abuse, then it becomes a different. I'm not saying you just let it go, because we have secular ways of handling that, right? So no, of course, people will, on this side of the hereafter, pay for the stuff that they've done, right? Like, we got that. But even in that, it becomes a matter of being open to reconciliation, right? So the answer I have is, do we let people get away with their stuff? Maybe. It's not really on us in terms of making people pay emotionally. That becomes a thornier point. But ultimately, like, if I look in the case of my mom, I could have held on to all that resentment and all that anger for years and years, like all the time. I could have just held on to that and said, you know what, this is on her. But no, even with that, the reality is that I still had work to do, right? I still had work to do on my end. I believe, like Joseph, sometimes we have to move past needing the relationship to be fixed in order for things to be repairable. Joseph had moved past the need for him to have a relationship with his brothers. He decided to take that horrible situation that had been done to him, and make something of it. Right? I believe God takes the bad and squeezes good out of it in every situation that can happen. I do believe that. I don't believe God causes evil or bad things to happen. I think God can use that stuff, though, and some good things can come out of it. But I think, Joseph got to a point where he had just moved on. He had moved on, and sometimes you just got to move on. Sometimes you got to be willing to not have the relationship in order for it to be repaired when it comes back around, right? He let go of all the anger, all the pain, all the resentment, all the chains around his own heart. And that's the same for me in my story, right? He let it all go. He moved on from it. And then when it came time, when the relationship came back around, he was in a position for it to be repaired. He was in a position to be willing to reconcile, right? Because he no longer carried any of that stuff from the past with him. But note in this story, like I said right from the beginning, whether you think you're him or whether you think you're the brothers or whatever, everybody in this story had work that they had to do on themselves for themselves. Everybody in this story had work to do on themselves for yourself. So whether you're the perpetrator in this story or whether you're the victim in this story, you still have work to do to be open to healing, to be open to reconciliation, to be open to all that. So just because you're the victim doesn't mean you get out of this without doing any work. In fact, sometimes doubly so, because you have to work through a whole lot more. And there are many situations in my life, not even with my mom, but just other situations where I could have been victimized, where I could have stayed the victim forever and never moved past that and grown and done what I needed to do to take what happened, accept what happened, and then grown from that situation. And so there's work to be done on all sides, whether you're the victim or the perpetrator, right? And that's exactly what happened with me and my mom. Like, I had gotten to a point where I just was ambivalent. I just didn't need the relationship anymore. And then when Carmen, my oldest child, was born, she wanted to have a relationship with him. And so when that came back around, when it came back around that the relationship could happen again, then I was already open to the possibility of it happening, right? So and then from there, I was able to work on my end toward actually making a good, fruitful relationship out of that. Now that didn't happen because unfortunately, my mom was never open to the possibility of reconciliation. And I know now, looking back, that it was because she just lost hope that it could happen. So part of opening ourselves up to the reconciliation of relationships, to things being worked out, is not needing it to happen, but having sort of an ingrained hope that things can change. Things can change. Relationships can change, even the worst. And I've read numerous books and stories of like things that are way, way worse than what me and my mom went through. Those relationships reconciling because both parties accepted their role in it and then moved from that point forward. Imagine how much lighter your heart would be if you allowed yourself to be open to reconciliation. Right? Imagine if letting go of a broken relationship allowed you to move it to a place where it could be fixed, where it could be reconciled, right? So that was the message. That was the message, and that was all based off the story of Joseph. This was a little bit longer of a devotional because it wasn't really a devotional. It was really that message from Sunday. And I promise you, Sunday's version of this was it was a lot more emotional. But I pared it down for this. I hope your day is going well. If it isn't, I hope it gets better. And if it doesn't, you know what? There's usually tomorrow. Okay, so I will see, or the next day, as my son says. So take it easy, and I will talk to you again soon.